Fitzpatrick takes the snap, drops back, lobs it back right corner. Decker! He's got it! Touchdown! Eric Decker scores! And the Jets have won it in overtime!
This is the Jet Take with Ben Blessington and Kyle Fahey.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another installment of the Jet Take. I'm your host for tonight, Kyle Fahey, and man, do we have a lot to talk about. The Jets get a big win in hostile territory up in upstate Buffalo. We improve our record to 1-1, and now we're looking to Kansas City Chiefs. And really, this is going to be a tough game, and this is one of those games where the Jets definitely have the talent to do it. But nonetheless, let's just hop right into it. Unfortunately, we are not joined by my co-host and, my best buddy, Ben Blessington, tonight. He has got a little sickness going on where he is unable to speak tonight, so unfortunately he will not be joining us. So I'll be your main host. But, let's just hop right into it, and let's start with the great win that the Jets got in Buffalo that improved our record to 1-1. Overall, it was a great game for the Jets. Not so much for the secondary, but offense. Ryan Fitzpatrick and Matt Forte, I believe two of the oldest guys on this team, really stepped up and possibly had the game of their careers. And for Matt Forte, that's huge, seeing as he's already a future Hall of Famer. Ryan Fitzpatrick, 349 yards, only one passing touchdown, but that doesn't really do him justice in the, standings or statistics, whatever you would like to call them. He did a phenomenal job. He had 15-plus throws of over 10 yards, according to our good friend Edward Grolick from Twitter. That's just uncharacteristic from Ryan Fitzpatrick. Matt Forte, only topped that with 3 rushing touchdowns. He was just phenomenal. The offensive line, we had a couple scares on the offensive line and with Brandon Marshall. We're still not completely sure what's going on with Brandon Marshall. If he's going to play in Kansas City, he's not going to play. James Carpenter, we hope he would play. He's got a calf strain. He went down actually in the same play as Brandon Marshall. It was kind of overshadowed by the Brandon Marshall injury. But nonetheless, none of those injuries are long-term. In fact, I hope that both of them will play. Not necessarily sure about those. But I believe we're just going to go ahead and hop into the callers because there's a lot to talk about. And, there's just a lot of boisterous opinions that we have on the line. So right now, I believe we are going to go to our good friend, David. David, you are on the line, man. What's going on?
Mr. Fahey, good evening, sir. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, David. How about yourself?
Good. Coming off a great win and looking forward to a big game Sunday.
Yeah, I think you put it best there, man. What did you think of the Buffalo game?
Great offense overall. Fitz looked great. Forte looked great. Marshall looked great, even though the injury scared us a little bit. Even Decker looked great. Enunwa looked great. The offensive line looked great. Pretty much the offense was just great in general. However, the defense, there is still some struggles that's going on. Revis got burnt for an 84-yard touchdown. Then after that, nothing else happened. Marcus Williams got the pick. So the defensive line also played pretty well. So overall, it was a great effort by the Jets. We finally beat the Bills after a 5-game losing streak against them. So, it actually feels good to get a win out of Buffalo and see what can happen when we verse them come Week 17.
Yeah, definitely. That was a big game for us. Unfortunately, we started out 0-1 in our home opener to a team who we definitely should have beaten, a team that made me look stupid, as an analyst and a broadcaster, saying that I guaranteed we would win. I guess I'm just going to have to keep that to Joe Namath. But what player do you think stood out the most in that Buffalo game? Was the real guy who changed the game for us? And, try to avoid, guys like Ryan Fitzpatrick who really filled up the stat box. Who was, the guy that nobody really knows about that changed the game for the Jets?
I would probably have to say Marcus Williams when he picked off Tyrod Taylor. It was a 3rd down and 1. Tyrod Taylor was looking for Watkins. I was watching that play, and I really thought Watkins was going to catch that. And then Marcus Williams just jumped up and got the ball, and it was just a nerve-wracking moment there because God forbid what would have happened if Watkins made the play. So Marcus Williams pretty much changed the game, and then pretty much after that, we drove down the field and got an additional field goal.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely, and you brought up Sammy Watkins. I don't think he was brought up once in the podcast except when he was limping down the field towards the end of the game. I mean, the Jets, for the most part, did a phenomenal job shutting down Sammy Watkins, and not just Sammy Watkins. They also shut down LaShawn McCoy. I believe he did under 70 yards rushing. Tyrod Taylor, he had those 2 pretty long ball touchdowns. But besides that, that was it for him, and that's uncharacteristic. And honestly, those were just blown coverages by the Jets that should have never happened. And then Charles Clay. I mean, those were the 4 guys on offense who, in exception to really Tyrod Taylor, got shut down to a sense to where they were non-factors in this game. And really what kept them in it the whole time was Tyrod Taylor's, great throws on blown coverages or just, getting beat like a drum in some cases. But, enough of that. Let's move on to this Kansas City game. And I know it's only week 3. Like it or not, this is a pivotal game for the Jets. What is your opinion on this game, David? Now, I know you're a very, very optimistic Jets fan, but in your realist opinion here, try to be as real as possible, what do you see happening in Arrowhead Stadium this Sunday?
It's going to be very, very, very tough. Arrowhead Stadium is the loudest stadium to play in, and honestly, the noise that the Jets are going to have to endure this Sunday is going to be extremely hectic. And not even just that, our team is going to get tested everywhere. Because if Brandon Marshall even plays this Sunday, he's going up against a great corner, Marcus Peters. Darrelle Revis is going up against someone like Jeremy Mack. We have Travis Kelce in the game. That's going to be a tough one, even though he's been slacking off. And then Jamal Charles is coming back, too. Let's not forget that, even though he won't be 100%. So you have lots of tests going on, lots of crazy matchups. So it's going to be very, very tough for the Jets to win this game.
Yeah, you definitely look at this Kansas City team, and they are one of the better teams in the NFL. Like you said, on offense, they have a very competent quarterback in Alex Smith, who is one of the most underrated quarterbacks in the NFL, if I would say so myself. He's like a better Ryan Fitzpatrick, hate to say that. But, then you look at all their weapons on offense. Like you said, they have Jamal Charles. He's not going to be 100%, obviously. But behind that, they have Spencer Ware, Tre'Tandrick West, guys who can definitely change the pace. Will definitely be a challenge for our defensive line, which is very good. But then you look at, their receiving threats. Travis Kelce is one of the better tight ends in the league. Jeremy Maclin, he's a very good wide receiver. I mean, these are guys that you definitely have to scheme for. What we've seen in the past couple of weeks is Todd Bowles really not adjusting. Do you think he'll be able to adjust this week and, really help the guys out, specifically Darrelle Revis, who has been struggling against faster guys? Now, Jeremy Maclin's no spring chicken, but I wouldn't want to put money on Revis in a 40-yard dash. I hate to be the negative Nancy, but we've just seen Revis struggle here. Do you think Bowles will help him this week?
The thing about Darrelle Revis is that the thing with him, I think he goes 8 or 9 yards away from the receivers, and that's what makes the receivers break out and go up against him. Yep. He needs to go close and he needs to lay out some contact. That's the thing with Darrelle Revis. I mean, no wonder why he's getting burnt in and out, because he's not really covering like he used to anymore. And I'm not saying he's gone downhill, he's past his prime. I still think he's still got it, and he's still one of the best corners in the league. However, whatever the case could be, whether it's that or whether it's miscommunication between him and the safety, regardless whether it's Pryor or Gilchrist, I think Revis will get the hang of it, because Jeremy Maclin, he is old, even though he still has his playmaking abilities in them. And if Revis does get burnt again, do you think this could be a concern?
Based off of what I've seen the first 2 weeks, I'm definitely concerned, but, I'll take one from your book here, David. I'll be the optimist. I hope that Revis will rebound well, and, specifically Todd Bowles will definitely help him out, because we've seen guys like Marcus Williams, like you said earlier, who have really stepped their game up. and they're really not getting the credit they deserve over the past couple years, even specifically for Marcus Williams. He led the team in interceptions last year. A lot of people make the argument that, they were lucky interceptions. They're not necessarily wrong, but they're not necessarily right either. I mean, you got to have some sort of skill and some sort of talent to get all those interceptions. But moving to the other side of the ball for Kansas City, like you said, Brandon Marshall as well as Eric Decker, both considered questionable for this game. Now, we do expect that they will both play, not at 100%. And you look at the secondary for the Kansas City Chiefs, you got Marcus Peters, who coming off of his rookie campaign, I believe was a Pro Bowler, arguably a top 10 corner in the league. He was phenomenal. Highly overlooked in the draft class, mainly because of off-the-field issues, and was a steal by Kansas City. Opposite of him, you have Sean Smith at the other corner. Then you go deep in the secondary, you have Ron Parker, and of course the Pro Bowler Eric Berry. These are all guys.
Whoa. Isn't Sean Smith a Raider now?
I'm sorry, it's Philip Gaines now, I believe, for the Kansas City Chiefs. Thank you for that. But Philip Gaines also is fairly good. I believe they got him also out of his draft class last year with out of Rice. I believe that's where he was from. But, either way, they still have a fairly decent secondary. Do you think Marshall and Decker not being 100%? Do you think guys like Quincy Enunwa, Jalen Marshall, Sharon Peak, Robbie Anderson, etc., even Matt Forte, will have to step up in the passing game to make up for, Marshall and Decker honestly not being 100%?
Well, Quincy Enunwa, for one, has stepped up his game, and lots of Jet fans are giving him some buzz, and I would love to see what he does this week against a very, very tough Kansas City team, especially since he is coming off a 6-catch, 91-yard game against the Bills. Regards to Jalen Marshall, I'm more or less concerned of what he'll do on special teams, because really we are considering him a special teams guy. I don't know about a receiver, as you saw off the fumble in the Buffalo game. As for Jerome Peak, the guy will get his chances at the ball maybe if Brandon Marshall or Eric Decker might not even finish. So
yep.
I really see Quincy Enunwa and Jalen Marshall making a statement this Sunday.
Yeah, and let's talk about the other injury that was quite foreshadowed in the Jets' victory over the Bills, and that's James Carpenter. All right, we assume that he's going to play. We're not 100% sure on it, though. And, in fact, he might not play. All right, I don't even want to make a decision. I hope in the back of my mind he does play. But, Kansas City has a pretty stout defensive line. I believe Dontari Poe, Alan Bailey, D. Ford, they're the main guys on there. And, of course, they have linebackers like Tamba Hali and Derek Johnson still there who can get to the quarterback if needed and coverage. Do you think the offensive line will struggle in any way? I mean, we saw reports coming out that Brian Stork was visiting the Jets, possibly just to sign him for the week just in case somebody else goes down. I mean, it seems like the Jets are legitimately concerned that James Carpenter may not be able to play this week. So what are your thoughts on that? Do you think it will really have an impact on the game?
For one, I pray to God James Carpenter plays this Sunday, because he is probably one of the best, or if not the best, offensive linemen we have. Look at that offensive line these last couple of games. They have been playing really well, and James Carpenter played a big part of that. However, no criticism to Wesley Johnson. Wesley Johnson has had his moments. He came out in that Buffalo game. He really shined. But if Carpenter does not play, I can't say, oh, no, it's the end of the world, but it is definitely a concern.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, James Carpenter is one of those guys who were snubs for the Pro Bowl last year. We might be a little biased as Jets fans, as Gary would put it. Inside joke for you guys who don't get that. But, he played fairly well either way. And you're right, Wesley Johnson definitely stepped up from that backup center role to come in for James Carpenter. But right now, at this point, we'll just assume that James Carpenter's not going to play. Hopefully that's not the case. But, Wesley Johnson would be the left guard, and then the backup to Nick Mango would be Dakota Dozier. And that would be the only interior lineman left. So this is definitely a concern for the Jets. Hopefully James Carpenter's even ready to go. I mean, this is one of those cases where if he's even over 45% in my book, you got to play him, just in case. Just in case. All right, David, we've gone over all of that. Let's get to the main stuff here. What is your prediction for Sunday's game?
I was predicting a loss, but after pretty much thinking this through, I think Marshall and Decker are going to come back ready to play. I think they're going to come ready to play because the Chiefs have been struggling lately. And I also thought back to the last time we played the Chiefs, and we did not do that bad against them. We only lost by 2 scores, and this was with our 4-12 team. So think about what we could do now with this upgraded team. I think they're going to come in. I think they're going to be ready to play. And I think they could take advantage of this struggling Kansas City team with a final score of 27-24.
All right, David. Thanks for being on, my man.
No problem. Have a good night, Mr. Fee.
You too. All right, so that was a great call from our good friend Gangrene David. And, of course, unfortunately, we didn't get to shout out all of his social medias, but you can obviously go subscribe to him at Gangrene David on YouTube. He runs a great YouTube channel there, and I believe his Twitter is at Gangrene David 1 because he's obviously the #1 Gangrene David in the world. And we're going to go on, and we're going to go to our next caller of the night, and that is going to be our good friend Tyler, who, he has one of the better theme songs, or louder, as I should say. So just prepare yourself, ladies and gentlemen. My man Tyler, what's going on? Tyler, are you with us?
Hello, Kyle.
Yeah, Tyler, what's going on?
What's up?
Hey, man, thanks for calling in. Do you want us to just go ahead and ask you some questions, or do you have questions prepared for us?
Yeah, I got a question.
Alrighty.
I might be going to this Jets-Dolphins game Saturday night. I was just wondering how much would the tickets cost?
That's a good question. I honestly don't know off the top of my head. I can go ahead and check out StubHub for you if you would want. But particularly, do you have any questions about the Buffalo game or the upcoming Kansas City game?
The Buffalo game?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, first off, we started real slow, right?
Yeah.
But it's okay. Sometimes in life, you have to start out slow. And then, Chan Gelly fixed up some plays, and the offense played phenomenal. And the defense had their ups and downs.
Okay, what do you think about the performance of guys like Ryan Fitzpatrick and Matt Forte in particular? Do you think this was possibly their best career games, or do you think this is only starting for the Jets offense?
I'll be honest, it's going to be starting for the Jets offense.
All right, I like the enthusiasm there. All right, what about the other side of the ball? How do you think the defense performed?
Marcus Williams played great. Our D-line and our linebackers played great. Revis is kind of concerned, and the secondary needs to step up a little bit.
Yeah, and definitely looking forward to that Kansas City game. Talking about our secondary needing to step up. Kansas City's got some major targets. Are you afraid that the Jets secondary is going to be unable to, I wouldn't say compete, but possibly keep up? I mean, we've seen the linebacking core revamped, so we hope that Travis Kelce isn't going to be as much of a threat as we think. But, they also have guys like Jeremy Maclin, who's a fairly good receiver, Chris Conley, who's one of the fastest guys in the NFL, I believe. He can definitely stretch the field. And they also have Anthony Thomas, who is a guy who isn't really used in their system a lot. But I know Andy Reid, and he will definitely utilize a guy who can run out of the backfield and catch the ball, like the Eagles did and the Raiders did and all the other teams did. So do you think that's concerning for the Jets?
Not that much. Like, our positions are going to be very tested a lot, and I don't want to give out any predictions.
Fair enough.
So I'm just gonna let it slide.
Okay. If you had one person to step up this week and help the Jets win, who would it be?
special teams like Jalen Marshall and Revis.
All right, good stuff as always, Tyler, and I checked it for you. Currently on StubHub, Miami Dolphins at New York Jets. I'm assuming that's the game you're talking about because I believe that would be closest to you. The cheapest ticket I could find was $50, but that is the nosebleeds, my man. I mean, you're at the game, it doesn't really matter, but the lowest it is $50 for one ticket.
$50 for one ticket?
Yeah. I know it's a rip-off,
I'll tell my dad about it and I'll know.
All right, well, thanks for being
on. We'll see. All right, thank you.
All right, that was a great caller as always, Tyler. And we're just going to keep rolling with the callers because, of course, as usual, our lines are swamped thanks to all of our loyal Jets fans. You know, shout out to him on Instagram if you guys don't get that joke. But we're going to go on to our next caller, and that is our good friend Kyle. Here's your theme song.
Panda, 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 panda. I got broads in Atlanta. Just to lean in the family. Credit cards in the scammers. Hitting the licks in the band. Legacy.
Kyle, what's going on?
Hey, what's going on, Kyle? Real quick, I'm driving home, so if you could just say something and let me know if you're an echo. And if you do, then just put someone else ahead of me and then put me on next.
You know, if you're driving, man, we're going to have to, just for your safety, you can listen to the show. We'll definitely keep you on, though.
All right, cool. I'll text you or DM you or something when I'm home.
All right, no problem. We'll keep you on the line. That's a great lesson right there, ladies and gentlemen. Do not, text and drive or call and drive. It's, our show's great, but it's not worth your life. But we'll just keep on steamrolling because you guys are great. And that's our good friend, Rumi. Rumi, you are on the line. What's going on?
Hi, how are you doing today, Kyle? Thanks for having me on.
No problem. And you know what, Rumi? I don't have to be, so mean today because I get to be the real host. I don't have to be the analyst. So, all smiles around today.
Can you hold on for a second?
Sure, no problem. I'm sure Rumi will join us as soon as she can, but, we'll just go ahead and discuss.
Sorry about that. I was, rushing home, and then it's just chaotic. Sorry about that. I'm back.
That's no problem. We all have those moments. So, Rumi, what did you think about the performance in Buffalo?
Oh, well, Fitz, he did a tremendous job throwing all those deep balls. And I know a lot of people made excuses for him saying that he beat a weak Bills team, not giving him the proper credit, when in fact they should, because the last time he was there he threw 3 picks. And we didn't make it to the playoffs. So, he threw 374 yards passing, probably the best he has done in his career, and converted 28 first downs. So, I was really shocked, too, myself. I even tweeted out saying, who is this Fitzmagic? He looked like Aaron Rodgers or Drew Brees or something. So,
yeah,
I think he did a tremendous job.
Yeah, definitely. And I wouldn't insult Ryan Fitzpatrick like that, comparing him to Aaron Rodgers based on Mr. Rodgers' performance over the past 6 weeks. Who specifically stood out to you besides, Ryan Fitzpatrick and Matt Forte in that Buffalo game? Who was the guy that, really didn't get the attention on SportsCenter but really made the difference for us in the long run?
Well, Quincy Enunwa, of course. He did a tremendous job also. And also I don't want to take away from Brandon Marshall. He injured his knee, and he still came into the game. But Quincy Enunwa, compared to last year, I think he's been stepping it up with all these big plays and catches.
Yeah, Quincy Enunwa, I believe he was one of the Idzik 12. I know he's definitely drafted by Idzik. I believe he was in that 12-pick draft class that, in exception to, Quincy Enunwa off the top of my head, so far has really not been that great. Quincy Enunwa was a guy coming out of the draft who, coming from Nebraska. He had Armstrong, Teddy Armstrong as his quarterback. He's still developing. He's a good quarterback now, but, at the time he was not that great. That definitely hurt Quincy Enunwa. And you look at a lot of the scouting reports, I believe he was compared to Randy Moss after the catch, making plays downfield. It was just a matter of
I didn't hear about that.
Yeah, that's what a couple scouts said on Twitter, and, it was just actually catching the ball, and that was a problem for him the first couple years. We did see him drop a couple balls, and now we're seeing him make these catches on 3rd and long right over guys like Stephon Gilmore, who he just burnt all night. I mean, some of those catches were phenomenal by Quincy Enunwa. He has definitely improved.
Yes, he can actually, he's a big guy too, so, I mean, it really helps.
Yeah.
Since we don't have, we have Kellen Davis as a tight end. That's not really saying much. But, I mean, you need that, 3rd wide receiver since we don't have a tight end. And also, our offensive line did a great job, especially Wesley Johnson, who had to cover for Carpenter when he was injured. I mean, nobody really talks about that guy. And then, Brian Winters and Brent Cavalli and Ben Aljalana, they had all these good blocks. And, Forte was able to run down the middle a couple times because of that, their performance.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Matt Forte had a career game in his Hall of Fame career. He's with the Jets for now. I don't know if he'll be a Hall of Famer as a Jet. Hopefully he will. But, going on to the other side of the ball, overall, what did you think from the defense? I mean, the score...
Well, I thought our secondary was struggling. That, those big plays that Rivas gave up and Vontez Miles, that was not good. I'm kind of worried about that coming into this next game. We can't afford to give up big plays like that, especially at KC. Yeah,
definitely. And, definitely not to take away from Buffalo here. Well, actually to take away from Buffalo because I don't really care. But, the final score ended up being 37-31, I believe. An exception to those 2 long touchdowns from Tyrod Taylor where they were just terrible coverage. You take away those 14 points there, then you take away the Jalen Marshall fumble return for a touchdown. That's 21 points right there. And then the other touchdown that the Bills actually got was in garbage time. I mean, we'll have to count that for what they really scored. But honestly, if it wasn't for busted coverages and a fumble, they really only would have had about 10, 15 points, something around there. I'll give them a little more because I would assume that they would have got at least a field goal on a couple of those drives instead.
And what bothered me is Todd Bowles didn't go for 2. I mean, that was ridiculous. He was making excuses like he didn't pay attention, he was concentrating on something else. That's not an excuse. As a head coach, you have to be aware of what's going on. And luckily, they didn't score because then, we would be down. We would have been down if they scored. We didn't make that 2-point conversion.
Yeah, I saw a lot of people really complain about that. I definitely get the point of that. The way I was looking at it, after we scored, if we didn't get that 2-point conversion, hopefully we do. But you got to remember, our fullback's Julian Hauser. I mean, it's no longer Tommy Bohannon. No offense to Julian Hauser, but he's no longer on the team as of today. So,
oh, yeah, that's right.
So the Jets obviously didn't have that great of confidence in him to believe to just, waive him today. I don't know if he'll be claimed to the practice squad.
And I don't even know. Yeah, and I don't even know the last time they made a 2-point conversion. I think it was 2010. I don't even know if they can make it. You do have a point there. This
is a team who, honestly, I don't know if is capable of making it. We would hope so, the way the offense is going. And, that's what, Jets fans say, oh, we should have gone for 2. What happens if we didn't get that 2? All right, the way I'm looking at it, Todd Bowles, he took the risk to where his team got the extra point, we didn't lose any momentum, and he let his defense make plays. And ultimately, we did. Can you imagine if we didn't get that 2-point?
That would have been so bad.
The offense would have came off the field flat. The Jets would have been realizing, man, they're only 1 touchdown away, and those are thoughts you don't want in the back of your mind. Now, if we would have got the 2-point, that would have been great. I mean, it probably would have saved me a couple gray hairs within the next 25 years. But in the end, it didn't matter. We won the game, and that's what's great.
True.
Looking ahead to Kansas City, this is a tough team, playoff team last year, very impressive quarterback. They got some good threats on offense, and they have one
Jamal
of the better.
Charles is not playing, though. I don't believe he is.
I believe they expect him to play, just at a very, I believe they're looking at him as
minimal?
questionable.
Oh, okay.
But at a very minimal factor. But even then, they still have Travis Kelce, Jeremy Maclin, DeAnthony Thomas, guys who, positions we have struggled against not only last year, but now this year with the whole Darrelle Reeves situation. overall, we'll not even overall, because we'll say that for the end, because we have to do our predictions. But
they have Spencer Ware too, right?
Yeah, they have Spencer Ware as their main backup, and then Shedandrick West, who was pretty big in fantasy last year. That's how most people know him. 2 fairly decent running backs. How do you think the Jets offense is going to play against this defense, who I did make the mistake earlier by saying Sean Smith? That was their old corner. They have Phillip Gaines now. I do apologize for that, but, he's a rookie, or second year now. He was a rookie last year, same as Marcus Peters. So they got 2 young corners who have done a decent job so far. And then deep in the secondary, they have Eric Berry and Ron Parker, who are fairly good. How do you think this offense, with Brandon Marshall and Eric Decker being not 100%, will fare against this team?
I think we'll be okay. I'm more worried about the crowd noise and all that, because it's tough to play out there. And then also I was reading some articles saying that we haven't won there in a long time. Something like Andy Reid is 4-0 against us as an Eagles coach, and during in 2014 when he was a Cardinals coach, and we haven't won there since 1998. Something like that I read. Yeah, but I still trust us, though, because we're well rested. We had 10 days to rest, and I think our defense will stop those guys. That's the only thing I'm worried about, those stats that I was reading.
Yeah, and just a quick correction for you. He was the Kansas City coach, but he did beat us in 2014, I believe, in Arrowhead. Yeah. So we haven't fared well in Arrowhead, and granted, this is one of the better stadiums in the NFL, arguably the best. I've read
it's like a college. It's like a college, game. They all dress in red shirts and everything. It's all loud. Reminds me of that. Yeah,
they're one of the more rowdy crowds. You're a USC fan, correct?
No, I'm not a USC fan. How dare you? Bruins. No? UCLA. That's like Joe and I. We go back and forth. He's the Trojan fan.
Well, when you do play USC, you're still used to seeing a sea of red and gold.
That's true.
These crowds can get very rowdy, and we have read that the Jets will be using silent counts.
Whatever works.
Yeah, I hope they work, and we're lucky we have a guy like Ryan Fitzpatrick who knows this system like the back of his hand. A lot of quarterbacks aren't able to do that. No offense to Geno, I don't know if he can do it because I haven't seen him do it. God forbid it was Bryce Petty or Christian Hackenberg. I can almost guarantee they can't do that, but I'm not too good with guarantees apparently.
And also they had a lot of penalties and turnovers in the last games too, KC, against Texans. So I'm not too worried about their offense. They're struggling too. Well, we're not struggling. I'm just saying they're struggling.
Yeah, Kansas City struggled last week, and I'm trying to remember who they played. I know they came back and won.
It was Texans, against the Texans.
The Texans?
Yes.
I believe the Texans are 2-0 as of right now, and I know Kansas City won last week, so I'm just trying to recall who it was.
Okay.
But anyway, Kansas City was down by like 21 points at one point of the game, and I think it was against San Diego. I think it was against San Diego. I'm looking it up right now. I just have terrible Wi-Fi. I'm being told by my sources it was. I don't know if you guys heard that, but
I did.
Yeah. They came back and won that game, and that was a lot of heart and resilience. Alex Smith dove right into the end zone. I believe it was overtime or double overtime, whatever it was. So they came back and won that game. San Diego obviously wasn't full health. They lost Keenan Allen, Danny Woodhead, but They definitely showed some weaknesses, and the Jets will need to capitalize. But Rumi, before we let you go, what is your prediction for the Week 3 matchup? Kansas City.
We're gonna win. We're gonna win 28-27. It's gonna be a nail-biter. It's gonna be really close.
Ooh, all right. I like that score. I believe Vegas has the total for the game, or the over and under, at 42.
42. I won the last week's because a lot of people said it was going to be a low-scoring game, and I knew it was going to be a high-scoring game against the Bills.
I thought the same. I do a little CBS pick'em, and they
were saying 40.
I
knew it was going to be over 40.
Yeah, the Jets almost got that themselves. All right, Rumi. Well, thank you for being on.
Well, thank you for having me. It was nice talking to you, Kyle.
Yeah, you too. Before you go ahead and shout out all your social medias, as the millennials call it.
Well, you can follow me at RK Love Jets, and feel free to talk to me. I love talking about football. obviously, especially Jets. Thank you so much.
And we love talking football with you. Thanks for being on.
Hey, what happened to my theme music?
That is Ben's specialty.
My gosh. I'm disappointed.
I was not left the master key, and I believe I've already messed up. So all I know off the top of my head is Tyson is Spice Girls and Kyle is Panda. That's all I know off the top of my head.
Okay. I'll let you go this time.
Yeah, we'll have to get you next week. Yeah, I guarantee it next week you'll have your song. All right? That's a guarantee I can keep. So
Thank you, Kyle. Okay. Bye-bye.
And, of course, that was our good friend Rumi, and you guys should definitely go follow her again. Her Twitter is @RKLovesJets, and I believe we're going to go ahead and bring on our good friend Kyle now. Hopefully he's still not driving, but if he is, we'll have to make an exception this time. And, Kyle, again, here's your theme music.
Panda, 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 panda. I got broads in Atlanta, just to lean in the family. Credit cards and the scammers, hitting the licks in the van. Legacies, family, wait and see.
Kyle, are you with us? Kyle. Well, he's unmuted, so that's not a good sign. I guess we'll have to come back to Kyle. We'll keep him available on the line, but we'll just keep on discussing, the Jets as usual, saying as that seems to be our forte. Kyle, are you with us? I can hear you.
Yeah, what's up?
All right, so we have you back on. We just had Rumi on the line. I don't know if you heard any of that. She dropped some major knowledge. And I just want to go ahead and get your take on the Bills-Jets game.
It was a lot of what I said last week. If you just watch the game and you don't really pay attention to what really happened, you think it's a great game. The offense looked really well. The defense had its shining moments, but there was still a lot of sloppy play. Like I said, you were going to see last week. Fitzpatrick having the fumble off the pump fake, and then Vernon had a key drop. There was, the offensive line looked really good. The defense struggled at times. It led up some big plays to Tyrod Taylor. So, for a short week, you couldn't ask for too much better. You were clearly going to get some mistakes with the limited amount of time for preparation and to face and to go out to Buffalo and play a team that's, Buffalo's not a great team, but they're nothing to sneeze at either,
Yeah, they're one of those teams that, they have all the talent and they can beat you any given week, but at the end of the day, their coach really can't get the job done. But, you said there's a lot of things that, people, they just look at the score, they say, awesome, the Jets won. Let's really look at what happened in this game. Who do you think struggled the most for the Jets? And, we hate to be negative Nancy's, but unfortunately these are things that the coaches have to address. So who do you think, in your Todd Bowles' mind, who do you think struggled the most in this game for the Jets?
See, now that's tough because it's tough to point out one individual player because, someone would say, Darrelle Revis because he got beat out by an Olympic track star, I don't care if it's 2009 Revis. You have 2009 Revis. You have Revis back when he was in high school and fast, and you could put him out there, and he's still going to get beat by an Olympic track star. There's just not much you could do about it unless you have another Olympic track star, especially when he's playing off and, he gets a free release. There's not much you can do. But it's tough for me to put on one individual player. But if you ask me to put on a unit, I would say the secondary definitely didn't have an amazing game. I thought that, something I mentioned a week ago, I don't know if I mentioned it here on Let's Talk Jets, but I said, the D-line against
Jet
Buffalo last week, it didn't, or not last week, last year, it struggled to get Tyrod Taylor, and I think that, they're not going, that the plan when they go up against someone like Tyrod Taylor isn't to, get sacks, but to make them hold the ball and try and collapse the pocket around them and not, where it was with Andy Dalton, where everyone was trying to get to the quarterback, where you more or less have to maintain your lane so he can't get by. But, you can't take that away from the defensive line for not getting many sacks on the night.
Yeah, Buffalo has one of the better offensive lines in football. Obviously, Richie Incognito. Richie Incognito is a Pro Bowler, and they just got a couple really good guys. I mean, Cordy Glenn was out for that game, and I don't think we capitalized on that. But overall, they're still a very good core, and I wasn't expecting a lot of sacks from the Jets defense. But let's move up a little bit in the Jets defense. Let's look in that middle of the field, the linebackers. And I believe it was you on the phone when me and Ben basically outlined what the Jets needed to do on defense to contain Tyrod Taylor, Sammy Watkins, LaShawn McCoy, and Charles Clay, and that was utilize our linebackers like Deron Lee and Aaron Henderson. I think that's exactly what we did. So I think Ben and I, we got that right on the nose, hate to brag, but do you think we did a good job at containing those guys overall? I mean, Tyrod Taylor got those 2 touchdowns, but they were basically non-factors besides that.
Yeah, I think so. The one thing I would have liked to see from the defense is, there's and it's overall as a whole for a while now. I haven't seen this defense come out and just take over a game where they hold someone at 10 points. And, Buffalo's a team that you should be able to do that against. And, that's just something I would like to see happen soon because, as good as the defense is at times, people are still putting up 20 points a game. I just want to see them come out, shut it down completely, and clearly not all the points go against them. You can't count Jalen's fumble 6 But, there just hasn't been that game yet from this unit, especially even back to the Rex Ryan days. But as far as containing, Tyrod's legs weren't really a factor. He didn't take off for any big run. And, aside from some long passes, the defense played really well because I'm trying to go through the score in my head, but I can't remember, a long Buffalo drive. I just remember, they got 21 points on 3 plays from 2 70-plus yard passes and a fumble 6 by Jalen. So,
yep, that's something we outlined with Rumi, and Kyle, this is why you were basically the Todd Bowles of our show. You were always in control 24/7 because you know what happened in the game. Let's look forward to this Kansas City game a little. This is a daunting team. This is a daunting task overall. Do you think the Jets can get it done in KC? And if we do, how are we going to do it?
Absolutely. This Jets team's got the talent to go anywhere and beat anyone on any Sunday. It's just a matter of if they come out and perform. This is really one of the most talented teams we've had in forever. Where if you tell me, we're going to Seattle and we're playing Seattle, even though they've fallen off a little bit, but if you're telling me we're going to Pittsburgh in a few weeks, yep. I'm not gonna, clearly that'd be a concern, but I'm not gonna be like, Pittsburgh's gonna destroy us. We could stand our own against everyone in the football league this year. But I think that Kansas City is definitely a team that we can beat. I think that in order to win, I think that the defensive line's gonna have to come out and harass Alex Smith. Alex Smith's kind of reminded me a little bit of Fitzpatrick. He could run when he needs to, but he's not Cam Newton. He'll run when he gets the opportunity to, but he's not someone you need to spy on. He's not someone, maybe if it's like a 3rd and short or something, you'll have someone in the middle just in case. If he needs 2 yards, he'll run and get it. But if it's 3rd and 20, you're not worried about it. But I definitely think that the defensive line's got to come out and ball. I think the linebackers are going to have to cover the running backs outside the backfield. And, it's been a long week. It's been a long week of rest. And I think that the secondary will be back to what we expected them to be. I mentioned it last week that I would expect a lot of the same problems, some miscommunication, some players being out of place against Buffalo just because of the limited amount of film. But now you got a long week to get ready for a Kansas City team.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a huge factor for us. We're coming off that terrible loss against Cincinnati, a game we should have won. We only got 4 days. Actually 2 to even really practice.
Yeah.
Because, usually guys get a day off or it's very easy, and then the other day is a walkthrough. So you only really had 2 days to game plan and get ready for this. And we went into a hostile environment and we beat a good Buffalo team. And now we had 9 days of straight rest when we really needed
10 days, I believe.
Or 10 days. Well, yeah, not great at math. But 9 to 10 days, guys recovering, recuperating, game planning for a team who we can definitely beat. All right, Kyle, before we let you go, what is your final score prediction?
Now, that's tough because, this is a game that I could see going in a few ways. This could be a game where the crowd takes over and the Jets don't come out looking good. But I don't think that's going to happen. I just don't see it happening, especially with the chemistry that Brandon Marshall has with and Fitzpatrick has with everyone, where you don't really need to constantly communicate. We can kind of communicate in looks and hand signals more than verbiage. But I definitely think that the Jets are going to come away victorious in this one. A very long break, possibly no Jamal Charles still. We're getting Jordan Jenkins back, it looks like. Darren Lee's been phenomenal, and even if Brandon Marshall misses time, I'm not too concerned, man, because then they're just going to double up on Decker. Quincy is so good, and, he's such a mismatch that, you can get him involved more, maybe give Powell some more touches. Clearly, the time off of Forte is going to be very well, but I see the Jets taking this one. If I had to put a score on it, I would say 26-20, New York Jets.
Wow. I'm liking it. It's been all good from the callers so far. You'll have to hear my prediction at the end of the show. Kyle, once again, thanks for being on, man. And, I'm on Twitter right now, watching the game, to be honest. So go ahead and give us.
Ooh, are the Patriots? Oh, wait. Are the Patriots losing? That's all that matters.
They're not losing and they're not winning. I'll put it at that. You'll have to go watch it. It's live streaming on Twitter because we're about to shout you out. You'll be seeing your name pop up anyway. Do you remember your Twitter name, or because we have it for you? But
I see. So this is like a pop quiz now.
Yeah, this is exactly
a weekly
this is
pop
what
quiz.
happens when you're the coach. All right, you got to know this stuff.
I didn't know I was the coach, man. I didn't know I was the coach. This is all news to me.
Yeah.
You should get like a sweatshirt, coach
Don't
supporters
walk out on us. Don't walk out on us like Belichick did.
No, don't worry. And don't worry, I'll answer questions better than Belichick out there trying to roast reporters.
City.
No, we're not. We're not on Kansas City because that's something he would say. We're on the wins. We're on to good times.
Okay, sound a little groovy.
Yeah.
So go ahead and shout yourself out, man. We're getting off.
Oh, yeah. We get off topic pretty easy, man. I want to say it's at NY_Jets_SC. I think that's right. Sounds about right.
That is correct. We'll take it. All right, Kyle, thanks for being on.
Thank you for having me on.
All right, and that was our good friend Kyle from NY Jets Fan Supporters Club. You guys should definitely go follow him on Twitter. Great takes as usual. And, I just want to talk about some of the takes that he had there, specifically the crowd, and this will probably be our main topic for tonight. And we will get the other callers on the line. Just bear with us here. The crowd in Kansas City, to describe them in one word, well, I won't even start there. We went into Buffalo, arguably the most loud, drunken fan base in the NFL, right? I don't think anybody can disagree with that. We'll get our Bills expert Gary Smith on the phone soon, if we could have a decent conversation with him, but yeah, they're very loud. I believe within 15 minutes of the gates being open for tailgating, people in the parking lot, I saw at least 3 videos of people being body slammed, just on 10s, just multiple beer cans. I mean, they were very loud, and they were definitely drunk and loud during the game. And now we go into Kansas City, they're a little more respectful, I would say, or, they're still very loud and drunk, but, not in, burning Eric Decker's, plush doll and, body slamming people. But they're still very loud. They're still very tight, hyped up. And, what I've seen, because I have a lot of free time on my hands, obviously. I run a podcast. I watch a lot of game film, and what I've seen from the Jets is when they use these hand signals, like Kyle alluded to, the Jets seem to have a lot of success. I mean, you go back and you look at the Patriots game where we won it in overtime. Specifically, the Brandon Marshall catch, over the shoulder in, double coverage play. A lot of people were saying, oh, that was a terrible throw by Fitz. It wasn't. That was exactly what they wanted, all right? You see Fitz making that hand signal to Marshall. That's exactly the coverage they wanted. They're making these little silent silent calls, as you would call them, these hand gestures, the little feet movement, just the littlest things that, the quarterback and wide receiver have great chemistry with. And it works for the Jets. We saw it not only in the Patriots game, we saw it in the Dolphins game, both Dolphins games actually. And, those 3 games right there were huge victories for the Jets. Well, not necessarily the Dolphins being huge, but they were the score was huge. I'll put it like that. So this is something the Jets definitely know how to do. This is something Ryan Fitzpatrick, I would say, has mastered. So I think this is how we can eliminate the crowd element of the game and take advantage of a team right now whose offensive line is banged up. They're without Justin Houston, I believe. Jamal Charles is still not 100%. And you take away Jeremy Maclin, it's really down to Travis Kelce. And I'm confident enough in our linebackers now, specifically Aaron Henderson, Bruce Carter, Deron Lee. The mixture of those guys, whoever else wants to get in there, they can cover Travis Kelce. They shut down Charles Clay. I think they could shut down Travis Kelce. We just got to put, 2 guys on Jeremy Maclin, just watch the little running back screens. And if the Jets offense plays like they did last week, this is a game the Jets can definitely win. I'm not saying they will, but there's no reason not to. There is no excuses coming into this game, unless Brandon Marshall doesn't play. I mean, that would, Brandon Marshall, Eric Decker, James Carpenter, if for some reason they're not able to play, we are expecting them to, but if they're not, that would be an excuse. But this is the NFL. It's the next man up. And specifically for Brandon Marshall and Eric Decker, obviously I don't want them to be out, but worst case scenario, if they are, I would like to see young guys like Jalen Marshall, Jerome Peake, Robbie Anderson, guys who took roster spots from guys like Kembrell Tompkins, Joe Anderson, and, a couple other guys, Kyle Williams, Jeremy Ross, who, all had decent camps, an exception to Joe Anderson, who was cut before camp, but, he was still there. These are guys who were veterans, they were savvy, they were reliable, and we gave it to young guys. All right, so I want to see them step up, and this is their time. Marshall and Decker are not 100%. Hopefully they at least still play and they at least get a couple catches, but we just need to step up as a team. This will be a true test if we are a playoff team or not. But we're just going to go on to our next caller, and that is going to be our good friend Jaden. Jaden, you are on the line. I don't think you've been on in a couple weeks. What's going on?
What's going on? How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. How about yourself? Got to be feeling pretty good after a win.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I got 2 wins. I got a win in high school football and a win for the Jets.
Nice. What position do you play?
Free safety and wide receiver.
Nice. All right, so you can lay the wood and catch the deep balls. That's nice. What did you think about the Buffalo game overall? Do you think it was a huge success for the Jets? Did you see some glaring needs that we need to address?
I did see. I'm sure you guys have been talking about this a lot tonight, but Quincy Enunwa, I mean, he showed up. Well, Marshall wasn't, and Decker wasn't. So obviously, we were talking about this man the whole off season. We expected him to show up this season so far, and yeah, he's done that. And but as far as what we need to work on, the defense and those deep balls, that really, because I'm from Western New York, and I saw those deep balls, and I knew once they got those touchdowns, I was gonna get text messages on, oh, the Bills are gonna win, they're gonna win. So we just gotta work on those in Revis in the secondary. We gotta work on that.
Yeah, I think those were definitely glaring needs that I think we all definitely saw. I mean, you take away those 2 long touchdowns from Tyrod Taylor, that the Bills had really nothing. They had about 10 points. Jalen Marshall fumbled that ball. We need to, stop that too. That's 21 points off the board right there. That final score would have been 37-10, would have been a complete blowout, and Rex Ryan probably wouldn't have been the coach. But, that was the past. We got the W, so, I mean, we're very happy, but let's look ahead to Kansas City. I've said it multiple times now, this is a good team. What's it going to take for the Jets to win?
My coach says this all the time. not always about the talent or size, but like, passion. We definitely have to show some passion, and we definitely have to show some aggression. Matt Forte's been showing it with that, workhorse-like mentality that he's running with. So I like seeing that on the offensive end, but I think Darren Lee's gonna have to show up with that. I don't know, just like my coach always says, be the hammer, not the nail. So that's gotta happen.
Yeah, it's not about the size of the dog; it's about the size of the fight in the dog. And Deron Lee has been playing under 60% of the snaps for the Jets, and he's our leading tackler. That's great coming from a guy who, honestly, I didn't expect a lot out of. I expected some nice plays. It takes a year to get adjusted to the NFL, but Deron Lee seems to come out here and he's straight balling, to be honest. I mean, there's no other way to put it, and, the linebacking core has been playing fairly well. Defensive line has been playing excellent in my mind. It's just the secondary that we have to take care of. How do you think we're going to help the secondary? Specifically Darrelle Revis, because everybody else, and except for Marcus Gilchrist not knowing where he's supposed to be, everybody else has been doing a pretty decent job. We saw Marcus Williams get that interception in Buffalo. Calvin Pryor made a couple nice tackles to save from first downs. How are we going to help Revis?
I think, everybody knows this. He's better when he plays up on people and shoves them up at the line. So maybe that can help. Those deep balls, he was laying back. So as far as that Revis goes, he could probably let somebody know if he's losing a step that he needs some help, and we can maybe even if Todd gives a different coverage, I'm sure that they could do something different. But as far as Revis, he just got to figure out. I'm obviously not in the NFL, but if they can figure something else out, that we could do some work, and I see us winning that game.
Yeah, this is definitely a game we can win, and honestly, in my mind, we should win. But, this is just one of those crowds that, we have to handle. Hopefully we make adjustments. Who are you looking forward the most seeing, though, in this game? Who do you think is going to make the biggest difference for us?
Oh, I just thought of this. I'm waiting to see Lorenzo Malden do something. I'm waiting. Like, he's just been, I don't know what it is. Somebody said that, I think I was listening to a podcast and somebody said that maybe social media getting into his head. Whatever it is, he's got to let it go. He's got to focus in, and he's just got to play. So I want to see something out of him. I definitely expect something out of Quincy Enunwa this week after what happened last week. And I'm sure Kansas City's looking at that on the scouting report. So I can look forward to hopefully Decker and Marshall playing, and hopefully the other Marshall not fumbling and costing us some points.
Yeah, I just find it kind of scary, that back-to-back years against the first game, the Color Rush game, in, or against Buffalo, two rookie receivers from the Ohio State University fumble the ball.
Yeah. Coincidence.
Leading to, touchdowns. Fortunately, the Jets got the win in this outing, but, last year it was not looking good. All right, any questions before we let you go?
How do you think we shape up against Kansas City so far?
Right now, I don't think Decker.
From what you've seen so far.
Yeah, right now I don't think Decker and Marshall are that 100%. So
no,
I'm really not confident right now, honestly, in the offense. Quincy Enunwa and Jalen Marshall are really going to have to step up, and I can definitely see it from Quincy Enunwa. Not sure about Jalen Marshall and even the younger guys, but we're going to need them to step up because you can't just count on Decker and Marshall every game. And I know that sounds stupid, they're your number one and number two, but other guys have to step up. And we saw that last week from Matt Forte, who really opened the passing game for Fitzpatrick. But, God forbid Forte didn't have a great game. Fitzpatrick arguably would have been under the rest of the whole game. It was fairly good protection for the majority of the game, but that was primarily because Forte was just doing his job, making that defense tired. So we just got to hope that Marshall and Decker can play well and really spread the offense well, because I think the defense will do their job. It's just a matter of the offense can.
Yeah, as far as if they're on the field, they're taking at least a man out of someone else. They're taking the attention of maybe Inunwa, maybe Marshall, Jalen Marshall. But as far as them being on the field, that takes so much out of our offense, or into our offense if they're on the field, and that can obviously it created more stuff for Quincy Inunwa last week. So if they're on the field, I feel more confident, obviously, because they are one and number two. But I just hope they're on the field.
Yeah, definitely. All right, thanks for being on, Jaden. As always, you're bringing some great advice and just fire topics and opinions. So, what's your all your social medias that you have, so we can go ahead and shout you out, because you definitely deserve some followers.
You can go and add me on Twitter at D'Angelo Jaden.
Yeah, all right. Well, thanks for being on, my man.
Thank you. I'll talk to you.
Yep. All right, and that was our good friend Jaden, who, just dropped fire, as always. And, right now, this is a team that can do a lot. We're going to go ahead and move on, and, all the callers that are waiting, thank you guys for calling in. We will have you on as soon as possible. I don't even know where to start, honestly. This team is so talented. It's just a matter if we can show up every week. And, like my co-host Ben says all the time, we play down to our opponents a lot of the time, and that's not how you make it into the playoffs. And you look at the Jets right now through the first 2 weeks. Ryan Fitzpatrick, projected he's going to, if he keeps this rate up, which, you never know. Based off of last year, he's not going to keep the rate up towards the later part of the year. Right now, if he kept playing like he did, he's going to have near 5,000 yards passing. Matt Forte has 196 yards in 2 games. If he can keep doing that, that would be on average for about 1,600 yards in the season. That would be fantastic. Decker, he's leading the team in receiving right now. I think that's just because Marshall hasn't woken up. Then on defense, young guys like Deron Lee and Marcus Williams. Deron Lee leading in tackles with 11, and Marcus Williams leading in interceptions with 2, and also 3 passes defended. So he's been doing a good job. The guys need to step up. And I think this is the game where we definitely have to do it. But moving on to the next subject, and, I hate to say this, but unfortunately we brought in Brian Stork this week for a workout. And, he went to my high school, so I'm always rooting for him. He's considered one of the Vero Beach greats. But that's not a good sign for the Jets, honestly. If we're having to go out and sign a guy who, was a starter a couple weeks ago, but due to off-the-field incidents, on-the-field incidents in practice, and just character problems. If we're really willing to sign him, I had somebody say, this team really has a great coach, we'll deal with that. Percy Harvin is the prime example, ladies and gentlemen. If anybody, doesn't know who Percy Harvin is, because I believe he's been retired for 2 years now, some of the younger kids may not know who he is. He was a very explosive player who was constantly injured and had attitude problems. And lo and behold, the Jets traded for him once upon a time, and it didn't really work out well, right? And I just don't like it. I hope that James Carpenter's healthy. Obviously, Brian Stork did not sign, as of today, and this is Thursday at 9 o'clock at night. But, things may change by then. And let's just be honest. If James Carpenter is unable to play, Wesley Johnson did a good job against the Bills. I mean, make no bones about it, but can he do it again? I'm not necessarily sure. He's going against guys like Don Terry Poe, Alan Bailey, D. Ford. The list goes on and on. I mean, they got some really nice young players at the defensive line. Derek Johnson, and then Justin Houston at the linebacker position. And, Tamba Hali's hurt. Can you imagine if he was healthy? They'd be extremely explosive on that defensive line. And this is not the time for us to get injured because we have this rough stretch now, right? So we got to play Kansas City, obviously, this Sunday. And then Seattle comes to us. I think we can definitely get that job done. But you're going from there. Then we're at the Steelers, at the Cardinals on Monday Night Football. Then we play the Baltimore Ravens. That name almost slipped me. I don't know why. I was looking right at their logo and I couldn't remember the name. And, then it gets easier. We play the Browns, the Dolphins, the Rams. But if we can get this win in Kansas City, we can go 2-1. Hopefully get the win against Seattle. That would be 3-1. I'm not expecting much from the Steelers. That would be 3-2. Then the Cardinals will be tough on Monday Night Football. I don't really think we can beat them. I mean, we definitely have the talent, but that's just another loud stadium. We have to travel to them. Unfortunately, that's just how the schedule works out. But if we can get out of this 6-game stretch at 3-3, that'd be phenomenal because it's easy sailing for there. It's an exception to the 2 New England Patriot games. I mean, we're talking about, like I said, the Browns, the Dolphins, the Rams, the Colts, 49ers, Dolphins again, and then the Bills. The 2 really games that I'm scared of there is the Patriots, and I think we'll win one of them. I mean, we go 3-3, then we beat the Browns 4-3, Dolphins 5-3, Rams 6-3. Then the Patriots. I believe that's on Christmas Eve. I believe that's in New York. I'm not sure about that though. I'll just count that as a loss right now because I don't know which one's in New York off the top of my head. But either way, we will get a win against the Patriots. So I'll just count that as 6-4 right now. Then we'll definitely beat the Colts on Monday Night Football because they just look depleted on the offensive line. That's 7-4. Then hopefully we beat the 49ers. We better beat the 49ers. That's 8-4. Then the Dolphins again, 9-4. Then the Patriots. That's a win. That's 10-4. And I counted wrong, but upwards of 10 to 11 wins. This is what the team can do if we can get out of the 6-game stretch at 3-3. And, hopefully the offense keeps playing like it does because it was phenomenal against the Buffalo Bills. Make no bones about it. Darrelle Revis definitely needs to step up. But I think that's really it to sum up the week. We got a big game coming up against Kansas City. As always, this is just a team who has the talent. But, sometimes can't just get it done. That just seems to be the Jets' history, unfortunately. And I hope that changes this week. All right, that's going to have to go ahead and end our episode for tonight. Thank you for all the watching, or listening, as I should say. You can go ahead and listen to us on iTunes, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio. Go follow us on Instagram, @thejettake, Twitter, @thejettake. And, of course, thank you guys for all the support. And, we do have a special announcement for next week, and that is that we will be joined by special guest Eric Coleman, former Jets safety. So we're just really looking forward to him. He'll be on talking some Jets and, of course, promoting his special event that he has going on. We'll give you some more details as more comes to us. So once again, just thank you guys for all the support. We'll leave you with the best chant in the NFL. Let's go Jets.